Git, and this is the Dodgy Git Show. This is second Dodgy Git Show today because I've just seen Dr. John here. What I'm going to do is just flip the screen across and play you his video that has been out for a few minutes, an hour or so. Just going to let you watch it. So I'm going to cross this over and hopefully you'll get what needs to come up if I've got the screens in the right place.
Well, it's Wednesday the 19th of September and a warm welcome to this video. Now, today's subject couldn't be more serious. It's about the Nuremberg Code of 1947. During the Second World War, of course, many atrocities were committed, and a certain group of atrocities were experimentation on human beings, deeply evil acts. Now, my life kind of changed a bit, really, when I went to this villa here. This is the Wannsee Conference Villa. And on the 20th of January 1942, Reinhard Heydrich and Adolf Eichmann and cronies met here in this beautiful setting near Berlin to work out what they euphemistically called the final solution. And this whole villa now, in immensely good taste, it has to be said, but very distressingly, has been converted into a memorial stroke museum for victims of human experimentation. Now, I'm not going to show you the material that I photographed in there, but if you do get the chance to visit, as I say, life-changing experience. Nuremberg Code, based on 10 points. The first one, all people that are experimented on in human experimentation, and this is sometimes necessary, we think about randomized double-blind controlled trials, for example, but they must enter it with complete free will. It must be utterly voluntary, and they must have complete informed consent to know what they're doing. And I'll unpick some of the details on that later. But free will, informed consent, people must know what they're getting into unambiguously. Second point, the human experiment must be the only way to get the information, and that information must be worthwhile. It must be worth getting that information. And it must be based, third point, must be based on previous knowledge, possibly animal experimentation, which we could debate about as a separate ethical issue, of course, but based on the best available science. So this is not just some sort of leap into the dark, some completely, completely untested technology, for example, that we're experimenting on millions of people with. It must be based on the best available science and previous knowledge with full experimentation, getting up to that stage. Fourthly, it must avoid any unnecessary suffering. There must be no unnecessary suffering in human experimentation. It's not saying there should be zero suffering, but it shouldn't be unnecessary. But of course, it's all entered into completely voluntarily. I've had experiments done on me at work, but I've volunteered to go into it. Physiological calibration of instruments, for example, have been done on me when I was young and fit. Fifth point, death will not occur. There must be no reason to expect that subjects will die. Now, there is a caveat here that the experimenting doctor may choose to experiment on himself, and if he dies, then that's his informed consent. But apart from that, death will not occur, certainly not to the subjects. Sixth point, the risk that is taken must be proportional to the potential benefit and the outcome that comes from the experiment. So this has got to be a reasonably expected beneficial outcome which is proportional to the risk which has been taken. There must be anticipation of any possible injuries or deaths. That even if this is a remote possibility, this must be anticipated. In other words, people carrying out human experimentation must think ahead, must anticipate what could possibly go wrong here. Has this always been done in the time period since 1947? Is up to your interpretation. Eighthly, the research must be conducted and closely supervised by proper doctors and scientists. So it's not take this experimental treatment, off you go, live your life as normal. I might see you if there's a problem, but no, it has to be closely, properly supervised by the relevant experts in the field.
Just to keep you up to
Ninthly,
date, they've caught that bloke
the subject
in
may
America.
opt out at any time.
It looks like anyway.
So the subject can say, no, had enough of this, I'm opting out, forget it, walk away at any time, completely free to do so. And the 10th point is the doctors, scientists conducting the research must be prepared to terminate the research if they think there is a significant or realistic risk of unacceptable levels of harm.
I do hope you lot understand what he's talking about and how it affects what's happened and what's gone on, and how we progress anything from where we are. He says that people can, doctors are allowed to experiment on themselves. Has Fauci even had a jab? I don't know. Just to keep you up to date though, the old Daniello Cavallo, that bloke that was running around in the bushes in America and they're hunting him for days, looks like there's quite a few people watching him get caught. So we'll have to review that. Please don't run away. Watch the end of John. It's got some important information about fundamental morals and standards. Please see video 15, morals and standards, and he seems to be as angry as I am about the whole thing, angry and upset. This is why we're doing this sort of thing, because we've literally, he looks as pissed off as I am. We fucking had enough. It's systemic bollocks, repeated over and over and over. And now you're breaking your own, it appears, that, what's the point of having those boundaries and guidelines if you freaking walk all over them? Anyway, I'll shut up. I'll let you watch the rest of John, because he's got much better language than me and much better at articulating the finer details. So anyway, I hope you're enjoying the show. I hope you're enjoying your day. John says here we got to start remaining positive about stuff after this. We've got to start building things properly and for the right fucking reasons together. Yeah, we're too fucking loose and fucking. What the fuck are we doing?
To the individual being experimented on. So that's the Nuremberg Code of 1947. Now, I am going to post the whole thing for your perusal. I think we'll just have a quick look through some of the main points now on the overhead. So this is the Nuremberg Code 1947. It's in many historical documents. It was doctors on trial, doctors and nurses after the war. And it's frightening to think that in a relatively modern, sophisticated country, doctors and nurses collaborated with the elimination of human beings, other human beings thought were substandard and deserved to be eliminated. That doctors and nurses could actively take part in this because they were told to.
Remember?
Is simply terrifying. Doctors and nurses do what they're told.
Never forget.
It would appear, in this situation, to the point of ending the lives of other people. This comes from the German doctors' trial, 1946. Now, the doctors argued, this is the codes here. You can look them up for yourself. I'll put some references in.
Please do.
That their experiments were no different from those that had been conducted before, and there was no law anyway, so they could do what they wanted. That was their argument. So as a result of this, the permissible medical experiments were drawn up by this Nuremberg Code, part of the Nuremberg trial process after the Second World War, published by the American government in this document. Here's the first point. Voluntary consent of the human subject is essential. They have to have legal capacity to give consent. So people that don't have capacity cannot be experimented on.
You hearing this?
They should have completely free to exercise personal choice without any intervention, element of force, fraud, deceit, duress, overreaching, and all the legal safeguard languages that are included. There must be no coercion.
Spellings.
They must have sufficient knowledge to give informed consent, understanding and enlightened decision before they say yes to anything. They should know the nature, duration and purpose of the experiment. They should know the methods, all inconveniences and hazards that can be reasonably expected, and other adverse effects should be made clear before the start of the experiment, before they decide if they want to cooperate. This must be open, clear and above board. Full information can be given. And part of the reason I'm angry is because I wasn't given full information in some events that have occurred over the past few years by people that should have given me full information over the past few years. How can you make an informed decision without full disclosure by those leaders that have power over us? It's a duty and responsibility of the person conducting the experiment. It's a personal duty. They have to do that themselves. They can't delegate it to someone else. Second, the experiment should yield fruitful results. Can't get it by other means, not some random harebrained idea. It doesn't actually say there shouldn't be a financial motive in the Nuremberg Code. But maybe we should add that as point 11. There should be no financial motive by the experimenter on those being experimented on. To make money out of people being experimented on. That is so appalling. It didn't even seem to be considered in 1947. This was ideological rather than financial. To me, it goes without saying that people should not be experimented on for others to make money out of. Point 3, experiments should be based on previous experimentation with full knowledge, not some harebrained idea that we simply don't know what the outcomes will be. If we have full knowledge and we're just building the next stage, then we're more likely to get it right than if it's a completely new idea. 4, the experiment should avoid unnecessary harm and suffering. 5, no experiment should be conducted if there's an a priori reason believing death or disabling injury will occur, except perhaps where the experimenter themselves takes that risk upon themselves. And there are many noble examples of self-experimenters in history. John Hunter famously infected himself with sexually transmitted pus to work out the nature of those form of diseases. Barry Marshall infected himself with Helicobacter pylori to demonstrate the effectiveness of his eradication therapy, and went on to save untold millions of, well, he does now, several million lives from peptic ulceration. Point 6, the degree of risk should never exceed that determined by the importance of the problem to be solved, the proportionality. Proper preparation should be made and adequate facilities provided to protect experimental subjects against even the remote possibility of death. If there's any possibility of the subject dying, the experiment should not be carried out. It's very simple. 8, experiments should only be conducted by very highly qualified people and should be well supervised. Now, there's no point having 3 well qualified people who live, I don't know, let's say in Geneva, saying, oh, we should do this. They should be experimenting supervising every single subject that's being experimented on.
What do one of those?
We need the expertise and the supervision.
I hope you're listening.
Together. High degrees of skill. 9. subject can pack in at any time, finish at any time, and the experimenter may need to bring the subject. They may need to bring the experiment to an end at any time. They must be fully prepared to do this. That's the Nuremberg Code, 1947. Makes a lot of sense to me. I'd like to see a new clause inserted for the financial gain. But it's a pretty comprehensive, well drawn up document after the doctor's trial at the time. An indictment on humanity that it needed to be done in the first place, of course. Have we moved on from then? Of course, we hope so. If history does anything, it's a warning. History is a warning for the future. I'm not going to overinterpret, we'll leave it there. Now, let's finish on a brighter note, for goodness sake. This is from our community health project in Uganda. Now,
well, there you go, everybody. He's got a bit on the end of his chap in Uganda there's chatting about him sorting grain out for food he's sorting out. Might want to watch the whole thing. It'd be great if you could go and watch him. I hope this one's come out all right. I'm not sure if I've had to mute one of the audio microphones. I'll go back and have a look. Anyway, thanks for joining me on the the freaking show 16 of the Dodgy Git Show. We're going to name this one The Code with Dr. John Campbell. Yeah, Nuremberg Code 1947, Law 10. Yeah. Interesting. John definitely needs a knighthood. I'll be I don't know if there's going to be one of these vote for Joe 100,000 signature things for him that somebody might set up, but I think somebody should set that up. I don't know how to do that, so I might, but he's I think John needs to get a knighthood for his work. He's a proper bloody doctor with fucking morals. Anyway, if you'd like to go back and watch this morning's video, show 15, I'm talking about what we're flipping educating, how we're educating, and how it's making people feel in our society. So if you'd like to like and subscribe and find me on the next one. They're doing them, I'm doing them pretty randomly, so if you subscribe, you'll get a notification and you can watch it when you like, even if it's in the bath or the toilet, or my voice is so boring it puts you to sleep. However you join me, I'm glad you do join me. I'm glad you join me on the Dodgy Git Show. I'm Dodgy Git. Lots of love.